tab labeled Notifications. Select the Notifications tab. Scroll down until you locate the Worldview Tube app icon. Select the tab, and here you can turn on and customize your notification experience for the Worldview Tube app. News doesn't wait, and neither should you. Turn on push notifications to stay informed. Every headline as it happens.
Colonel Rob Maness has a lifelong record of providing dedicated service to this nation. Having worked his way up from the enlisted ranks to full colonel, he served our country for more than 32 years. He has served as a bomber squadron commander, bomb disposal technician, Joint Chiefs of Staff Operations Officer, assisted the National Security Team with the campaign plan for the global war on terrorism. He authored the first theater nuclear war plan, and served as the Vice Commander of America's largest airborne intelligence wing. Colonel Rob Maness is a true American hero. This is Rob Maness Live.
War isn't just fought with guns anymore, it's fought with algorithms. Artificial intelligence isn't just helping soldiers, it's replacing how they think. From drone swarms that pick their own targets to deepfake psychological attacks designed to shatter minds. This isn't the future, it's already happening. AI drones hunted down retreat forces. In Libya, no human needed. In Gaza, AI called Lavender listed 37,000 human targets instantly. And in Ukraine, over 70% of the battlefield death come from AI-enhanced drones. This isn't smarter weapons. It's about the world where judgment is automated. The war looks more like a spreadsheet than a battlefield. Follow for more deep dives how tech is rewriting the rules of life and death.
Welcome back to More War Monday. The Rob Maness Show's live on Worldview Tube and our X Spaces simulcast. Well, this is a historic day with President Trump traveling to Israel and Egypt to announce the historic peace deal and the successes between Israel, Hamas, and more importantly, the Arab world. The 8th peace deal he has achieved this year, but underlying these successes are great areas of concern with modern warfare. It is not difficult to find operations being conducted around the subject of artificial intelligence, drones, and robotics as they relate to the current wars and potential future wars on the horizon. So while peace may be at hand now, these 21st century threats are very real and in every domain. The United States must prepare to fight and win within air, space, maritime, cyber, and even on other worlds. Well, my guest today is Dr. Hans Mumm. Dr. Mumm boasts over 25 years in government and contractor roles, specializing in national security, homeland security, and advanced technologies. He has served as ODNI's cybersecurity division chief, managing a $140 million budget, and as a CIA branch chief. He's developed continuous monitoring and rogue wireless frameworks. He rose to fame in Operation Iraqi Freedom. You all know who he is. You just don't know. He created the Iraqi regime playing cards, DIA's top information operation, and was medically retired from combat injuries before joining ODNI. He's a leader in energy, nuclear tech, cognitive science, and military intelligence, and he pioneered UAV innovations like the world's first multi-fuel helicopter and researched robotics impacts. He holds a doctorate in management and homeland security focus, an MS in strategic intelligence, and a BS in management, plus 23 military medals and awards, including a U.S. patent. He teaches homeland security at California University of Pennsylvania. He's co-authored textbooks and wrote a bestseller on the complexity leadership theory and drone integration. Dr. Mumm, welcome to the Rob Maness Show. Unfortunately, my camera is in op right now, so I'm having some tech issues.
Well, I'll be right over and I'll try to fix them for you. Hey, it's great to be here. Appreciate being invited on the show.
Well, thank you so much, sir. I appreciate it. by my standards, you've agreed to do this short notice, but good for me because I had to have a weekend to study to interview you. Well, first of all, thank you for your service. We appreciate it and appreciate what you continue to do. This, we live in a complex world, sir, and just can you give folks an overview? That little clip I showed at the beginning of the show was intended to just give folks a hint of what is out there and what is probably coming. Can you give folks an overview of the threat situation, when, especially when it comes to artificial intelligence being integrated with other domains and how things like influence and information operations are going to be actually tapping into kinetic operations?
Well, the first thing is that the clip said that a lot of these things are integrated already. And you have to remember that artificial intelligence has to be programmed by somebody. So although we'd like to think that it programs itself, it doesn't. It has to be taught. And so you still have some ability to control what artificial intelligence does by the training data and training operations for what it's going to do. So you do have a little more control than people think. Now, is it true that they can be sent out and be told, go find a target and take the target? The answer is yes, absolutely. But we've been able to do that for a while with different machines, right? So, we've had drones that have been able to do a similar mission, just not necessarily totally without human control. Now, generally, you do not allow weapons to go out on their own and just pick targets and take targets. You still have a human in the loop somewhere. Now, that's not always the case for some terrorist organizations and other organizations who do not value life the way that the US does and NATO does. So we're not quite at Skynet yet, but there is a lot of issues when you start to look at the psychological piece of a robot, right? So that is a problem, and it's one of the reasons why the US continues to lag behind the rest of the world in autonomy. Part of the challenge is that we want that human in the loop. We want to have some ability to have the human make a decision, because it's not going to be just a machine who says, I'm going to kill all these people. There's going to be repercussions for that. Well, if we do it in a vacuum without any integrity and without a conscience, now we have a problem. And so that's one of the reasons why the US is lagging behind. Some of it is on purpose. Some of it is because technologically we take a long time to get anything done.
Yeah, some of that's bureaucratic, I know. But one of the questions that keeps jumping out at me in this whole concept, and let's just take the situation with Israel, Gaza right now. There's been what a lot of people perceive, and I think I'm perceiving this too, a massive pro Hamas information and influence operation going on to try to influence, especially young Americans. And when you look at some of the media, especially the social media clips on it, it seems to be taking. Am I wrong in observing that, or is something else going on there?
No, I think you're correct in observing that. The challenge is what do we do about it? And the issue that we have is not only do we have social media platforms that get swarmed by bots and AI, and so now they can influence people. I mean, I see stuff on social media, and they have pictures that are AI created and other things that, if you don't really understand what's going on in the world, you can be sucked into this stuff really quick. So the challenge with that is that when the Israel war started, when the whole situation started, the U.S. and Israel didn't go on the offensive when it came to social media. They went on the defensive, just saying, well, I mean, we have to do it. We have to defend our country. Now, are they correct? Absolutely. But Hamas went a different direction. And they basically went on the offensive on social media and said, hey, it's all we want is, we want peace and we want our own country. Okay, well, let's take a time out. That's not necessarily what a terrorist organization wants. And so
Yeah.
when you look at it, that's part of the challenge is that we're not hungry to win the social media war, and other people are. And so when you look around the world, you say, well, where do they get all this talent? I mean, where do they get the talent to be able to create these things and get these, social media things out? Well, if you look around the world, I mean, it doesn't matter what country it is. There's a bunch of former Soviet Union countries that are out there. If you look at these folks, the way that they eat is to be able to create, right? So sometimes it's
Hmm.
creating social media, sometimes it's simply being able to hack into computers. But they're smart and they know that the way that they're going to get money and the way that their family are going to survive is when they have that extra influence, when they have the ability to break into a different computer system. See, they're hungry. We're not hungry. We're not being attacked every day the way that they are. And so they're looking at how do I push technology forward so I can have a meal next week. We're not looking at technology that way. And so we go on the defensive with a lot of this, and they go on the offensive. And offensive tends to win, right? I mean, the art of war says if you're
Hmm.
going to go into a defensive position forever, you will lose. Well, that's what we tend to do. And that's why we continue to lose. But it is pretty scary to look at the massive push that was done by Hamas in this whole thing and how many people truly believe that the aggressors were Israel. Israel
Yeah.
was attacked. The day before that attack, Israel wasn't bombing Hamas. They were
Hmm.
trying for peace and to get along. So how is it that we went from, literally the truth, which was the day before that attack, Israel was not attacking Hamas, to
Hmm.
a false narrative of, well, I mean, Hamas is just the innocent people in this. Well, they were the ones who attacked, not Israel.
Yeah, yeah, that's one of them. One of the other interesting things that I've seen over the weekend, and this has to be an operation, is that they were the big narrative was about famine and starving kids and all that, and they had videos and all kinds of supposedly media hits from inside Gaza, and then when you see the pictures of the people celebrating the ceasefire, they're all well fed, they're well clothed. They're driving brand new cars. Some of them, I mean, very expensive cars. One of them, and it's really. But then I got to thinking about it. I'm like, well, is Israel now on a counter narrative operation to prove uh, the propaganda of the starving and famine poor people in Gaza? They're showing their own version of it, but now they're showing them fat and happy and driving new cars. It's really
Well,
difficult to figure it out.
so it is, and part of that challenge though is that when you get into these narratives, again, people get sucked into them and they believe what they're seeing,
Mm,
which
yeah,
again, if you understand, the mass media, they're really good at telling you what they want you to know, but not telling you the entirety of the truth and letting you decide.
yeah, exactly right. Well, I mean, this propaganda war is just a very small piece of the situation that we face, both currently and in the future. When you're talking about crossing domains, integrating AI and robotics, and those kind of things to become weapons to be used as weapons of war, whether it's offense or defensive. And in the next segment, sir, I want to talk about the maritime environment and why we're at such a high risk from all of those threats in our maritime system, because you've studied that along with the team that you've written a textbook with, and we want to cover into that because I'm a big sea power fan, and I know that we can't deter China unless we have enough sea power in the Pacific and Indo-Pacific area in order to do it. And this threat really bugs me. We'll be right back with Dr. Hansbaum.
Yeah, it's fucking unmanned. Попали нахуй. Взорвали. Окей, блять, видео. Взорвали его нахуй. Good job, блять.
Welcome back to the Rob Maness Show, folks. And you just saw a little bit of a clip there of a unmanned surface naval vessel that was supposedly trying to attack a commercial shipping vessel. And the security team on the commercial shipping vessel was firing back at this unmanned surface vessel. But that's just the rudimentary issues that we really face currently and not far in the future. One of the reasons I wanted to have my guest on today, Dr. Hansbaum, a U.S. Army retired veteran who's a cybersecurity expert, both in national homeland defense, but also national security, has been the cyber chief at ODNI, been a branch chief at the CIA, and was responsible for making the 52 card playing deck for the Iraqi bad guys, which was really hailed as one of the greatest, if not the greatest, information operation the United States military has ever conducted. And Dr. Muzz, welcome back. I wanted to get into the maritime piece to this because you guys did a textbook on this, and the maritime situation is very tenuous because it is so let's just call it networked, wirelessly, wired, and all of those. I mean, what is the size of the challenge there to defend it?
So it's tremendous because if you look at underwater, right, we have our underwater cables that somehow keep getting attacked by certain countries, and they claim that it's an accident. Somehow, an accident once a year is one thing. Attacking my cables 3 and 4 times a month is probably not an accident. So we have communications cables that are getting destroyed. And then you start to look at things like the pirates, right? Well, you've had pirates, since 1798. I mean, you've had them for hundreds of years. The big difference, though, is back in the day, the pirates would, jump on the ship and they would steal a few things and they would jump off the ship and they'd leave. Well, today that's not what they do, right? And they've gotten sophisticated because they've gotten smart. So at some point, they decided that they weren't going to lose any more people, so they started using unmanned systems to be able to first go out, and they were using drones to look at the different boats. Now, why would they be even looking at these certain boats? Almost all the information that you want on any ship for any size is actually online. It's free. You can go and literally look up. You know which ship is carrying the Ferraris, which ship is carrying the bananas. It'll tell you the manifest. It'll tell you where they're going, why they're going. So there's information that's out there that's available to the pirates, and they know how fast the ships are going. They know the routes. So to attack them is relatively simple today compared to 1798, when you actually had to sit around and float for hours or days to try to find a ship that might be passing by. So now we get into the autonomous systems, and then we get into lethality on the autonomous systems. And that's really what they're going for with some of those smaller ships that they're sending out there. Some of those things have explosives. Obviously, the one in the clip had explosives, or else it wouldn't have blown up like that. So they're trying to actually damage the ships now and get them to where they can't move, and then be able to board them and either steal everything or see if they can just take the ship. But it's changed a lot over the years, just how dangerous maritime has become.
Yeah, it's extremely dangerous. There's still rumors going around about the Baltimore bridge, the Key Bridge incident.
Yep.
That talk about how could that vessel have been hacked somehow internally through either a wireless port or a USB port and those kind of things, because of the situation. The ships are so linked in and digitally controlled. It's not a real far stretch to get there, is it?
It's not. And part of it, by the way, is it was meant for safety. So part of the reason why ships are linked together so much, and they all use GPS, and they use these different systems. Part of it was really for safety. Part of it was for profit, right? Because the faster you can get someplace, the faster you can drop your load and move back to wherever you're going to get to. But part of it was actually for safety, and those safety systems are now being used against us.
Yeah, absolutely right. When we look at the unmanned versus fully autonomous and uncrewed type of vessel, whether it's submarine or surface vessel, when you're in the maritime environment, what are the defenses that we have available to us today to be able to lock those systems out from being able to attack our Navy vessels or a vessel that we were tracking in the Red Sea and those kind of places?
It's very minimal. Literally what they did in that video was pretty much what they've got. Small arms fire. You can try to send signals out, but normally that's not really going to work. An unmanned system like that is already on a terminal control, so it's already has its sights on where it's going. So it's probably not talking back to anybody. So trying to send a signal down to try to scramble its communications probably won't do you any good. So literally you're going to end up going lethal on it in order to be able to stop it from getting close to you. Because the challenge is you really don't know what's on it, right? Is it just munitions that's on it? Is there bugs and gas on this thing? What's the purpose behind it? Is it there just to basically take my, take my ship? Or is it there to take my thought process off of my mission, which is to move my ship out of harm's way? Because you saw how many people were dealing with this one little boat. Well, you're dealing with that one little boat. There could be 5 more boats coming up someplace else. So this could actually be a feigning mission, and they're getting pretty smart at being able to control these things. Now, the other interesting thing is underwater. So UUVs, unmanned underwater
Hmm.
vehicles, are becoming much easier to get a hold of. And I mean, even Ukraine has a pretty advanced one that they just put out. And so these things are pretty easy to get a hold of now. So now, how do you defend against a UUV? And how do you defend against these things when they start to actually talk to each other? And that's something that we haven't even gotten into yet. I think we'll get into later in the show. But when these things start to talk to each other, and they start to goal seek, it's going to be almost impossible to stop them.
Yeah, yeah, and they're not just counter ship vessels, right? Haven't the Ukrainians used them against the bridges and those types of targets too?
Counter infrastructure as well as counter communications. So keep in mind, at one point, the Chinese had looked at some UUVs, and they had threatened to put some of them off our coast, and
Hmm.
we were concerned about that. And we were like, well, how are you going to get these little UUVs? They said we send boats over all the time, right? They're just going to be stuck on the bottom like barnacles, and at the proper time they come off. And they're like, okay, well, why would you do that? They said for the payload. So guess what the payload would be? It's not munitions. It was cyber signals,
Yeah.
because all you have to do is be able to get into a port and overload some with cyber signals, and knock down defenses, and now the world is open to you. You don't have you can do whatever you want to do. So other countries and other places are thinking far beyond just a simple munition.
Yeah, absolutely. And we used to be that forward thinking and innovative. I mean, most Navy people, and I read Blind Man's Bluff, using the intelligence capabilities of our submarine force during the Cold War. This you would think that we would be ahead of folks, especially from a defensive perspective, by developing offensive capabilities so we could see how it works and develop the adequate defenses to prevent this type of activity. But we're not doing that.
So the scary part is 23 years ago, I was giving a briefing to the Pentagon. I briefed them on the most foolish thing that was ever known, which was called autonomous systems. Now, why was it foolish? Because they told me it was foolish. And 23 years later, now we're opening offices for autonomous vehicles.
Yeah.
We are easily 20 years behind.
Yeah, I'm sitting here about a mile away from an autonomous underwater vehicle education and training facility run by a local college right here on the coast of Mississippi, and the kids are doing it every day, sitting in rooms, managing these things, doing the operational planning for them. Now, these are for commercial activities, but that is not a very big leap from commercial activity to intelligence capability and surveillance and reconnaissance, right?
Not at all. A lot of the sensors and systems are the same. But like I said, part of the challenge now is that we have just woken up literally in the last 6 months.
Mm.
A 12-year-old child in Ukraine has literally made our defense industry look a little foolish when it comes to autonomous systems and what they can do with them. We're just waking up, and now we're trying to figure out, well, how are we going to, build all these small drones? Well, how are you going to do that? Since the exact
Mm.
same supply line is what is required for every single country who wants these, every single KB Toys who has these. And by the way, the components are almost the same as what's in your cell phone. So you literally knocked yourself down to the lowest common denominator, and you are at the bottom of the food chain. And the Pentagon thinks that they're going to be able to build a whole bunch of small UAVs and get back on top of this issue. I think they're going to have a bigger challenge than what they understand.
Yeah. The challenge I have, Doc, is that what you just said, they don't understand. And those of us that are working this issue in academia just casual observers that have a little bit of experience out here, like I am, are going, what are you thinking, guys? Well, we got to take a break again. When we come back, hopefully I'll get the camera fixed and you can see me too. But I want to start into the space realm and robotics and talk to Dr. Munn about policy and where policy needs to be when it comes to this type of activity, especially in space, because are we defending our sovereignty in space? That's a big question. Just like we have to think about it in the one-dimensional world, in the three-dimensional world, we have to think about it from a space perspective. And what's the military's role in that defense of our sovereignty? We'll be right back with Dr. Hans Munn.
But with Brandon, it's always cutting edge stuff happening in the world, and it's not just from the political angle, because you can get that on other platforms, but it's always from the biblical angle. So you're dealing with a guy that loves Jesus, you're dealing with a guy that's very intelligent, you're dealing with a guy that is cutting edge conservatism, and you're dealing with a guy that wants to be biblical all at the same time. And so for that reason alone, I hope many, many people will not just lift up his ministry in prayer, but will also financially get behind it, because from the angle I'm trying to describe, he really is the only game in town. And we desperately need it in these last days. Can I get an amen to that?
For a lot of people, space is out of sight, out of mind. But in reality, it underpins almost every aspect of daily life. Satellites are a crucial part of more than half of the 16 sectors of national infrastructure. A third of crops are grown using weather data. GPS navigation data keeps supply chains and logistics moving. And the timing signal that comes from GPS is what stamps digital transactions, which means digital commerce, e-finance, none of that works without satellites.
It literally drives the way we do life right now, and it's only going to get more and more important.
Welcome back to the Rob Maness Show, and my guest today is Dr. Hans Munn, who is an expert in this area of these cross domains, the cyber domain, artificial intelligence capabilities, robotics, and the space domain. And Dr. Munn, the little clip there, reason I wanted to show that is that that's a Space Force Guardian speaking in the clip in uniform, but he's talking about everyday life, you know, credit card transactions, those kinds of things. And it never really crossed my mind that every time I do something down here on the terrestrial surface, I have to now have a defender defending me just so I can do that when I want to do it.
It's not only true, it's getting more dangerous up there. A lot more countries are up there. It's not just the U.S. and Russia and China anymore. With the invention of small satellites, almost every country who wants to be up there can be up there. So the interesting challenge there is who gets to own it? Well, right now we sort of play nice in space with different folks. However, several years ago, China shot one of their own satellites out of space, shot it down. And they did that not because they were bored. They did that to prove to the U.S. that they could hold our satellite systems at risk. Mm-hmm. And so the U.S. Navy took on one of the most important and probably one of the riskiest things that they've ever done with the amount of calculations they had to do so quickly. And we actually shot down one of our old satellites just to make sure the Chinese understood that we could hold theirs at risk. So it's a very interesting place where we have taken normal terrestrial munitions up into space and have had to use them. But then when you start to look at cyber and hacking the different satellites, and then you look at how crowded space has become. I mean, right now, we're talking on the internet, and I use Musk's Starlink. Um, and he has, hundreds, if not thousands, of those satellites up in space now. And, the balance of wars are actually fought based on Starlink now. So, where are we going to go? Whoever owns space is going to own it all. And, President Trump was smart enough to start Space Force, his first time around, and people kind of laughed at him. And if you look at it now, if we didn't have Space Force, we'd be in a lot of trouble.
Oh yeah, being an airman, having studied Billy Mitchell and the creation of the separate Air Force, I've long been an advocate for the creation of a separate Space Force, primarily budgetary reasons, because it subsumed my service's operational budget, just like our service subsumed the Army's ground operational budget, and kept it from being able to be perfect, as close to perfect as possible, the things it's supposed to do. So I fully support the Space Force thing. Now you've studied not just the technical piece of it, but from a policy perspective. And one of the lines as I was studying for this show that your team has said was that a national sovereignty extends into space essentially, and that it requires military defense to defend that sovereignty. Where are we on policy today, and where do we need to go when it comes to policy that addresses that issue?
We are struggling with policy because technology has moved so far so fast. And we are also struggling with the international agreements as to what that actually means, right? So China is right now on the dark side of the moon. What are they doing there? Well, they claim that they're there harvesting energy. Okay, you probably could have harvested that, down here. So we're struggling a little on that. And then when you start to look at the idea of, Golden Dome is the latest thing, right? But is there really going to be weapons in space? Or is Golden Dome mostly going to be a terrestrial system that is backed up by intelligence and targeting from space? So it's a huge difference of what I just said. So if you want to try to do weapons in space and true weapons in space, now we're going to have a real problem with international, because now you could literally hold any country at risk anytime you want it. That's one world order and one world power. That's not really what we want, right? That's not what any country wants, to live in fear like that. But the interesting part about space is that humanity is going there, whether we like it or not. In the latest book that we wrote on space, survival in space, I talk about Project Hyperion, which is actually a project, and it's real. And they are building basically a space station where humans will go up, they will live, they will procreate, and their children will never set foot on Earth. So we're not that far away from it, and trying to figure out who owns what and how we can agree to things. We've kind of gone a little bit the wrong direction, especially where, we used to be more of a community in the entire world when it came to space. It was kind of like, the submarine world, right? If a sub ever got in trouble anywhere, it didn't matter if you were, Russian, China. It didn't matter who you were. You were there to help them. Well, that's the same way it used to be in space. But wait a minute. We just had cosmonauts that were stuck up there for almost a year.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So we're kind of going the wrong direction in the way of making space a peaceful location.
Do you think it's the territorial needs on the surface of the moon and eventually the surface of Mars, which is the next logical destination after that we get back to the moon? Is that a driver similar to what border requirements and territorial needs on the surface of the Earth are?
I think there's two big drivers, and one of them is that humans we're we're unpredictable. Even though we like to say we're predictable, right? We're not. We're very unpredictable, and so the unknown of what agreements might look like and who gets there first and who gets the mineral rights or who gets, the whatever, um, is very unpredictable. Secondly, there is projects that recognize that humans do not always do what's in their best interest. There is a project ongoing right now that is actually attempting to take all knowledge from the humanity, all knowledge of the human race, and actually put a copy of it on the moon in case we don't make it.
Wow. I didn't know that. That's
Yep.
Who's behind that project? The Chinese?
Actually, it's multi-governments, multiple governments, and they're trying to figure out how to be able to send up as much information as possible, so we have a copy of humanity on the unlikely idea that we don't make it, because again, humans are we're not predictable, and we are prone towards violence.
Yeah, exactly right. Those two things are facts. They're not. You're not being hyperbolic or overstating the case. Well, we've got a hand up over in our live audience, Dr. Munns. Let's go ahead and take a question real quick. Go ahead. Shell is our host over there.
We have Wib, sir.
Thank you, Shell. Thank you, Colonel. Thank you, Dr. Munn. You spoke early on about the AI and kinetic actions making life-death decisions. What about in cyber operations? Do you know of any state actors that are currently utilizing AI, whether it be to help find 0 days that are undiscovered or actually do hunter-seeker operations on their own?
So there is AI that will go after and look for things like 0 day and try to deal with some of the cybersecurity piece on the hunter realm. If we're looking at actually hunting humans or hunting actors, absolutely, there is AI that's out there that basically you say, go find this person. And then from there, how do you intervene or how do you decide what you're going to do once you either locate them, or if you locate them, are you just trying to destroy their computers or destroy their information? Keep in mind that it gets pretty messy on the dark web when you start to look at all of the amounts of money that are out there and you get into different currencies, the cryptocurrencies and things like that. It's rather interesting to see some of the hunter killer systems that are out there. What they're really looking to do is kill people's financials. So they go after that Bitcoin and they destroy the accounts.
Wow. And when we see this type of activity, or can we see that type of activity in the computer systems or on the web? Is there a way to detect that without being able to see the activity itself?
So somewhat, the challenge we're going to have right now, and that's the challenge that I talk about in a couple of the quantum papers that I've written, is that right now, 64-bit computers aren't going to go anywhere, right? They're going to be around for a long time. Our cybersecurity systems and all of our cybersecurity policies, laws, and governance all are based on the idea of a central processing unit that's in that 64-bit computer.
Right.
Well, guess what? Once you go to AI, you're now processing on the edge. Then you process it through a 5G or a 6G system, you're on the edge again. Then it goes up to quantum, and now you're processing possibly in a different dimension. Well, then you cascade all the way back down. So exactly where does the demarcation for you losing all cybersecurity and knowledge? So that's part of the challenge, and that's actually one of the things that we're working on right now is looking at how do you look at continuous monitoring in a quantum realm? How do you do that? And then how do you do it using things like inline memory to be able to try to slow some of this down so continuous monitoring systems can actually look at it?
And
It's
that's
not quite as easy as people think.
That's exactly what I want to dive into in this last segment is the quantum aspect of this and what does that mean? What is a quantum computing and what does it mean? What you just said is how do we look at it? How do we deal with it? And then how do we respond? We'll be right back with Dr. Hansman.
You woke up with a sore throat and a low-grade fever. You know you are getting sick, so here's your choices. You can get sicker and miss work, try to see a doctor this week, or sit hours in a crowded waiting room at urgent care.
I have a smarter option for you. Open your medical emergency kit. Match your symptoms to doctor-recommended prescription in your booklet and take the right meds now and get well faster.
This is not a first aid kit. It's like having an urgent care in your home. It includes doctor-prescribed medications to treat over 39 medical issues like respiratory infections, strep throat, pneumonia, UTIs, and more.
No waiting to see the doctor and no standing in line at the pharmacy. It's right here.
Every home should have at least one medical emergency kit, and here's how to order.
Go to worldviewhealthcare.com. Your kit to treat dozens of common and serious illnesses is rushed to your door. worldviewhealthcare.com. That's worldviewhealthcare.com.
The emergency kit available at worldviewhealthcare.com. Make sure you don't have to go to urgent care. I got pneumonia. I didn't have to go. I took this last year. Stayed at home, went to bed.
Personalized attention that makes technology feel human. Bridging time and distance. We connect hearts through robot. Leveraging full-stack robotics technology to enrich people's lives. Pushing the boundaries of imagination. A smarter, better future is within reach. It could be your intelligent housekeeper or your trusted family assistant. From the inside out, it will redefine the way you live. Driven by robotics technology.
Welcome back to the Rob Maness Show. It's More War Monday, and this war of cross-domain artificial intelligence intersecting with robotics and human beings is a challenge. It's already here, by the way, folks. It is here. That little clip you saw there is an advertisement from a robotics company, and I just wanted to show it because my guest today is really a bona fide expert in these areas. And we were talking before the break with Dr. Hansman, my guest today, about the work he's been doing from a quantum computing perspective. And Dr. Munz, when I see that clip, when I saw that advertisement, I said, well, I've got to use this to set up this discussion because I skimmed your paper on the quantum issue, and you were talking about that just before the break. I guess, first of all, explain to folks in layman's terms, what is quantum computing and why is that important from the perspective of being able to defend ourselves in this realm?
So quantum computing is basically just think of computing very quickly, but at a qubit level. So it's a very small level. It's very cold in order to be able to keep these things alive long enough for them to do the calculations. However, the challenge is that there is far too much salesmanship out there as to what it is and what it isn't. So first thing is a true quantum computer is 32 states of an electron. We use two. We use a 1 and a 0. So when you hear folks talk about, oh, we have quantum and we do all of this stuff in quantum, and okay, do you do it in the quantum area? Yes, there is an entire science of the quantum area and quantum attributes. But do you have a quantum computer? You can't have a 32-bit or a 32 computer if you're on a 64-bit computer. So there's a little too much buzzword bingo out there when it comes to AI and when it comes to all of these different things for what truly is there.
And some of your work, based on what I read, is it lays out what appears to me to be a detection and maybe even can get to a defensive system at the atomic level based on changes you're seeing in the physical aspect to detect a threat.
So there's different ways to look at how to do cybersecurity. And like I had said before the break, most of our stuff right now, policies, laws, and governance, are all based on a 64-bit central processing computer. But when you are going up and down through the stack, you are losing. There's a demarcation of losing the cybersecurity rather quickly, because the whole idea behind cybersecurity is steady state. Well, if you don't know what steady state is, how do you know if you've been attacked or if you have had errors within your communications network? So one of the things that we had looked at was using quantum chemistry instead of quantum physics. So if you use quantum chemistry, when you spin up that instance, you're the one who spun up the instance. So you know what steady state is. So as things are changing and moving, you can decide whether you're being attacked or whether everything is steady state and your computer is acting the way it should.
That's pretty cool. I usually say amazing, but so when you connect artificial intelligence projects to this type of computing, are we even there yet? Because we're seeing some pretty amazing artificial intelligence activity going, I would say.
So the clip that you showed is actually quite accurate. It's actually probably an older clip because they've gotten even better than that. China is pushing a lot of robotics down into their healthcare industry, especially their elder care, because they're out of humans. And that's one of the things that people are missing in all of this autonomy, is that one of the reasons we're having to do this is because we're out of humans. So one of the reasons why Russia is throwing drones and Ukraine is throwing drones back and forth at each other is because they're out of humans. They're out of troops to be able to do the work. So you send a human only to do the things that they must do, and you send a drone to do the rest. So it's the same way in China. Their workforce is not geared towards being able to take care of the elder care. Their workforce is, production, right?
Yeah.
And so what they figured out was the best way to be able to deal with this is to create an entire industry based on robotics in the healthcare industry. And they're doing quite well. I actually am attempting to buy one, but I haven't really got a quote that I could afford because they are a little pricey. But I was looking at them for my parents. My parents are elderly and they won't leave their home.
Yep.
So what do I do, right? You can't really call 911 when they live out in the middle of nowhere. So I was trying to solve the issue with autonomy. So that's part of the challenge as to how far along we are in this AI. However, humanoids are coming along quite quickly. If you go to work for Amazon right now, in almost any of their warehouses, you're actually going to be assigned a robot. You will work alongside a robot. In America, at the BMW factory, there are humanoids that are working. Musk is talking about doing several different humanoids for his different offerings that he's doing. Russia actually had a humanoid that went up to the International Space Station in 2019. Now think about the safety requirements for space. It went up there and it did so well, and its name was Fedor. It did so well that when they got the robot back down, they actually destroyed it because they already learned all the lessons. So you have to understand, like, why are we doing these things? There are logical reasons. Why is Russia pushing so hard on humanoids? It's very easy. One, they're out of people, and two, what do they do all the time? They always talk about, we're going to use nukes and bugs and gas and everything else. Okay, well, what'd they do in Syria? They threw gas. Why? Why would they do that? Because they know for NATO and the United States, it's a no-go zone. We're not going to go in there anymore. But they could send a robot in there because they've already trained them to drive, to drill, to weld, to work. So they can work the land. They can own and get anything they want out of that location using their humanoids while we'll stay away. And by the way, the only thing that we had was, Boston Dynamics, and we spent billions on them. And then they sold all of the information to Hyundai, a foreign country. And so we have a dancing robot.
Mm-hmm.
We have a little dog that has been around for over 20 years that hasn't operated correctly in 20 years. And that's pretty much what we have. By the way, if your listeners are interested, they can go to Temu and they can buy a drone that actually has a droppable module built in it for less than $500.
Exactly right. I've seen those droppable modules. It's amazing where we're not at. That's what's really got me interested in this subject, even more so than a military guy. Is that now we see Musk is developing this Optimus humanoid, but my insider track tells me that Optimus guy is not as far along as Musk wants people to believe it.
So a lot of them aren't quite as far along. They can do the basics, but remember, we are also trying to get these robots to look like us and think like us and work within our world. Well, humans are super inefficient, right? So we're taking a very efficient machine and we're making it inefficient. Right? So it's just like with the robots, they're trying to get them to be nice to people and things like that, right? Or they get them facial expressions. Well, a human smiles for an emotional reason, right? A robot smiles and wastes electricity. So it makes no sense. Now, China just put out a new robot that actually can change its own batteries. So it has a 2-pack battery pack, and when it starts getting low, it can actually go and it articulates and it can change its own battery pack. So now 24/7, it never has to stop.
Wow. So Doc, we only got a couple of minutes left here, but we've created 4 or 5 new lieutenant colonels in the U.S. Armed Forces that are like corporate officers for like Palantir and those kind of capabilities, because I'm assuming we want to fast track this type of work and get it back on track so we're ahead of the game instead of working from behind where we're currently at, in my opinion. Is that a good move?
So I will just tell you that right now we are so far behind that Germany has a Department of Motor Vehicles and a Department of Autonomous Vehicles. Okay, the first drone port in the world was Rwanda, Africa. You can put people in as lieutenant colonels. You've got a long ways to go. And part of the reason why they did that was they were trying to bring a corporate mindset into an acquisition system that is so broken, and it has been. I mean, it's every year, 20, 30 years now I've been doing this. Every year I hear the same thing. Well, acquisition reform is going to save our lot. And we do nothing. Literally, you buy things almost the exact same way today as they did in Vietnam time.
I know. That's why I voted for Donald Trump, because he could actually say acquisition reform, and I thought he meant it. So hopefully, we've got 3 years left. We got 3 years left, and we can find more people like you and I that want to reform the system, maybe and run for office or get appointed. Anyway, well, Dr. Munz, thank you so much for coming on today. I really appreciate it. This has been very informative. Tell folks how they can find you on the web, social media, and what your next thing is you're going to come out with.
So it's easy to find me, just hansmum.com. There's a website out there that talks about the books and a bunch of other things. LinkedIn is an easy place to find me as well. As for the next one, I'm continuing to work on some quantum as well as looking at what to do about data center issues.
Absolutely. I look forward to